The last few months have been a whirlwind for Logan Paul and George Janko.
Respond to what?
Following a podcast episode that may have changed the trajectory of their relationship. But before we get into details, here's a brief introduction to who these guys are.
What is up, people of the internet? My name is Logan Paul and welcome to my vlog channel. That's right.
Logan Alexander Paul, as you may know him, is an American social media influencer, professional wrestler, YouTuber, entrepreneur, and actor. With over 23 million subscribers on his YouTube channel, Logan Paul has definitely made a name for himself. Not to mention, he's the co-founder of Prime Beverages.
Starting a lifestyle drink with KSI.
Paul's rise to fame began in 2013 when he started posting videos on the Vine app.
Mom? Girls be like...
Vine was a short-form video sharing app that was popular at the time. Paul's videos were often funny and relatable, and he quickly gained a large following before finally moving to YouTube in 2014. George Janko is a multi-talented American personality known for his work as a recording artist, actor, YouTuber. George has gained fame through his diverse content on his official YouTube channel, George Janko.
Way worse than I thought it was.
No.
So
George Janko has been a host on the Impaulsive podcast with Logan Paul since his first appearance on the podcast, when 6ix9ine was on the show that day.
I'm in trouble. Go back out.
George did so well that he eventually secured a place on the podcast as a co-host and gained some equity. And for a while there, they were an unstoppable comedic duo. Logan and George, alongside Mike, were a hilarious trio. Their off-the-cuff banter and wild stories had everyone hooked. But in 2022, things took a different turn. On November 2022, Bobby Lee made an appearance on the Impaulsive podcast episode 351. And let's just say, it didn't help.
He is clocked out.
I know. George has been under a tremendous amount of abuse. No, stop, George. I want you over here with me. George, I want you over here with me. Chase him down.
It was a huge turning point for the show. In a now infamous podcast episode, George Janko and Logan Paul got into an explosive argument about religion and about who is emotionally smarter.
You can't put words in my mouth. I never said that.
Let him speak.
You assume so much that you don't know one Bible verse.
What happens to a Muslim when they die, George?
I don't know. God says no one knows who goes to heaven or hell. That's in the Bible.
But they do go to heaven or hell.
Logan Paul went ahead to rob the entire Bobby Lee episode on George Janko's face. So the entire argument was already kind of weird. Things got so heated that Logan Paul went nuclear, calling Janko's beliefs fundamentally flawed. He told George that he needed a therapist because Jesus isn't doing it for you. And fans of the content creator were furious. Many of them took to Twitter and spoke out against Paul's words on the show. This also led to George Janko stepping away from the show and starting his own podcast.
My name is George Janko. I am on Impaulsive. Well, I was. Logan fired me. And we're no longer friends anymore. It kind of sucks.
In one of his podcast episodes, George admitted that he was fired by Logan. Logan had his face removed from the podcast channel's banner and replaced with Mike. Logan Paul may have figured that George Janko may be some serious competition, seeing that the format and everything about George's podcast is similar to Impaulsive and Severed Ties with George. Unfortunately, it blew up in his face. Despite this, George Janko insisted that he will still be a part of Impaulsive and that he has no plans to leave the podcast. Obviously, guys, I'm still on Impaulsive, guys. For any of you guys that are like, oh, their beef situation, and now he's starting his own, like Lane. I decided to do this less than 20 hours ago. But ever since that day, a simmering tension has hung in the air between them. They've all done the classic internet move of unfollowing each other on social media since, with shots continually being thrown from both sides, both subtly and not so subtly. Most recently, Logan and Mike appeared to take a few more digs at George during episode 380 of Impaulsive, including a section where Logan was muted when making a comment about views. Nearly a year later, Janko has opened up about the situation on an episode of Jake Paul's podcast, revealing why he's no longer friends with Logan, but hopes to one day be able to see eye to eye. George Janko dodged questions about the incident for a while. On Twitter, George explained that he is not allowed to speak about what happened between him and Logan. Regardless, he thanked his fans for bringing his attention to Logan's comment. He ended his tweet by writing, "I've already moved on from that toxic environment," referring to Impaulsive. But later on, George hinted at financial frustrations and feeling undervalued on the show. Janko spoke in a recent episode of his show, saying that he had to pay $10,000 a month just to stay on Impaulsive, and that he wasn't paid enough for his time. "We had personal issues with each other, and it's hard, because my love never left, right?" he said, admitting that Logan was the guy that opened up the doors for me and took care of me. I think in the back of Logan's mind, regardless of how he thinks, and regardless of what I've done, as a friend, I think the aspect of him being above me in the industry, in his mind, he'll always think, well, he's only sticking around because he gets something out of it. In my mind, I was like, I'm out. And when I come back, I'm gonna show you I'm stronger and I don't need you. And that way, when we do have a conversation, you know it's only out of love.
I had to start my own show because we're not making money on this show, and I'm getting pushed out.
You made money on the show.
I can show you my books. I was spending 10 G's a month being on the show.
All right, let's talk about this. Obviously, I wasn't on the podcast to represent myself, so I'd like to clarify a few things that were said.
Paul has recently shared a video refuting the claims made against him. In the video, he asserted that Janko had a company credit card to cover expenses.
But George made $317,000 in the 15 months that he got paid for on Impaulsive, as well as having his own credit card. All expenses related to the show were paid for, including all travel and lodging. Obviously, George's total reimbursement came out to $20,000, 317 cents. I'd love to see any books that show otherwise. Spending $120,000 a year to be on a show is a little confusing.
He also claimed that Janko wasn't fired from Impaulsive.
10% equity of the entire show.
Not you, not Caleb, not Kevin, not Dylan. Nobody called me when I got fired.
George did not get fired. He quit. I'll touch on that in a second. But after he quit, I called him frequently. I reached out. I wanted to reconcile the friendship. I invited him to my birthday party and WrestleMania and even my ranch a few weeks later. He chose not to come.
Paul also took issue with Janko's brand deal with Celsius, a competitor to Paul's Prime. Janko responded with a video of his own, saying to Paul,
TikTok is cute, bro. It's cute. I get it. You're doing your best to show face. Do whatever you need, bro. Like, talk to your team. You could bring camera. You could bring your attorney, bro. Come sit on the couch and talk to me like a man.
During George's podcast on February 1st with Jake Paul, he addressed their falling out and spoke highly of Logan's brother multiple times. The former co-host of Impaulsive didn't hesitate to praise Jake during the introduction of the episode, describing him as a better man than I am, and continued to express admiration throughout the podcast.
Yo, all joking aside, when you guys said that meant the world. You guys were talking very nicely after that whole drama. You were the only people on YouTube that were like, nah, we like that kid. So I really appreciate it. That was very sweet.
What was everybody else saying?
George and Logan currently have some differences, but it seems that George is looking forward to repairing their friendship when the time is right. It's unclear when that might happen, though. While George Janko has established himself as a popular podcast host with his own show, Logan has achieved a WWE championship and plans to pursue wrestling full-time. With the tremendous success of Prime, Logan's stardom is continuously rising, distancing him from his previous days as an internet icon.